As you already know, the coolest thing about Tecmo Super Bowl on the NES is how much you can change. In fact, you can go as far as changing the whole playbook for every single team if you really want. But the question is, what kind of plays should you call and what kind of plays should you avoid? And how do you come up with an offensive strategy that will be successful in the game? Now, I can help answer those questions for you, but really only if you're playing against the computer. If you're playing against another human being, the answers are going to be a lot more complicated. I mean, you've got to take into consideration who they are, their tendencies, what they understand about how you play. It gets pretty complicated. Anyway, let's take a look at how to design a play calling strategy regardless of your team for playing against the computer. Okay, first things first, avoid plays that have a lot going on in the backfield. These reverses might look pretty, but they're extremely dangerous. In Tecmo Super Bowl, the longer you have the ball in the backfield, the bigger the chance is that you'll wind up being tackled for a loss. You also need to remember that plays with play action and fakes don't allow you to do anything until the pre-programmed sequence is finished. When you see the blitz coming, you want to be able to pass the ball immediately, not to have to wait for your quarterback to finish faking to the running back. And so when we choose our offensive plays, we really want to keep that in mind. When you're reading the play diagrams for passing plays, look closely at how the plays are diagrammed. Some of these plays clearly have fakes of some sort built in. What you want is a play that doesn't have much built in, something that gives you control as soon as possible. And the same thing applies to running plays as well. You'll want to have a combination of sweeps and runs straight up the middle, sure. If you've got two good running backs, make sure that you've got two plays for each. If you've only got one, like I do, you'll probably want the good back to get the majority of the running plays. Now, I also recommend not having a bunch of running plays that look identical. You want to vary the hole that you're going through as much as you can. This way, if you discover in-game that you've got a disadvantage on the offensive line or something like that, you can easily adjust your play calling. And of course, that leads me directly to play calling strategy in general. You really should get to know your team as well as you can before you play. For the base Tecmo Super Bowl game, there are extensive strategy guides out there for free that you really should check out. If you're playing with a modified version, of course, you'll need to do your homework yourself. Become familiar with Pro Football Reference and the wealth of statistical information there that can help you figure out your team's strengths and weaknesses. Of course, you can also just look at the ratings in game and see how your team works. In my case, I know already that New England doesn't have a good passing game and that I'm going to rely a lot on the running game. And so, right from the beginning, I start pounding the ball on the ground. And I keep it up, varying the angles of the runs and the running backs. But that doesn't mean that I abandoned the passing game entirely. It's important to also call a passing play from time to time to keep the computer defense honest. What I've learned though is that the computer will look past anything it considers to be an obvious passing situation. If you're faced with 3rd and long, you seriously might want to run instead. The same thing is true if you're going for it on 4th down, which I highly recommend doing. Remember that punting is for wimps. Now this is important because of how the game's defensive system works. Regardless of whether you call a run or a pass, if the defense guesses your offensive play right, it will smother you. This is one reason why it's important to have fast developing plays, just in case the defense guesses right. But this is also why it's important to confuse the computer by passing when you should run and running when you should pass. The defense has a 1 in 4 chance of guessing right if it knows that you're going to pass or run. Those aren't great odds. However, if you know that the defense will lick pass and you run instead, it has a 0% chance of guessing right. And so, don't be afraid to run the ball when you should pass. That's pretty realistic, of course, and it's one of the many reasons why Tecmo Super Bowl on the NES still has such a strong following to this day. Anyway, if you want to be successful, remember the basic offensive play calling strategy. Get rid of the plays that take way too long to develop. Make sure to vary up your play calling to keep the defense honest. and be sure to run on passing downs and pass on running down. Anyway, this was a pretty simple lesson, but once you really get the hang of it, you'll find that the computer is a lot easier than you once thought.